Hello everyone and welcome to AI Deep Dive channel. In this video, we are going to talk about AWS New York Summit announcement around generative AI. So New York Summit was last week on July 10th and there were some big announcements coming from AWS. So let's dig right in. So this is a highlight of all of the features that were announced and we'll go through each one of these in this video. To start with, Bedrock agents got some very critical new features. Bedrock Guardrail announced features to reduce hallucination. We also had AWS App Studio, which was announced. And this is basically to help customers build enterprise-grade generative AI applications using natural language. We also had improvement on Amazon Q Developer that can provide more accurate code suggestions now based on your customers' code repositories. We had vector search for MemoryDB that went GA. Knowledge base added few more connectors. Before it was just S3, so I'll discuss briefly what are those. And finally, there were also a few more straightforward announcements. One is around Q Studio, now also have Q Developer part of it, so you can get the suggestion right from there. And Q Apps, which was previously in preview, went live. So we'll not just be discussing these last two features in details, but just you know that there is a distinction between Q Apps and App Studio. So Q Apps previously, when Amazon launched, it was in preview and it allows you to build a lightweight application. So let's say you did something in Amazon Q, you build an application and you want to actually convert it to app and you want to reuse it, then you can create that lightweight kind of application using Amazon Q App. So that went GA. But they also launched AWS App Studio, which is basically to help you build enterprise-grade applications. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so starting with the Amazon Bedrock agents. So Amazon Bedrock agents now support memory retention and code interpretation. So what does it mean? And it's very, very important. So basically it can retain memory across multiple interactions. So agents can now retain a summary of their conversation with each user. And this is especially helpful for complex multitask applications such as, like, say, you're booking the flight or you're processing the insurance claim. So imagine a scenario where user is booking a flight. So thanks to the ability of this retaining memory from the agent, now the agent can learn the travel preference of the user. And that can really help streamline the subsequent booking request. And it also help you create the more personalized and efficient user experience. For example, it can automatically propose the right seat if a user is more prone to taking like aisle seat or a window seat. So it can suggest the similar kind of seats in the subsequent flight booking. It can also actually take note of the meal preferences that the user has. So all of that really helps with the overall personalized experience while building these kind of applications. Now, the another feature that was introduced was the code interpretation. So now agent can dynamically generate and run code snippets. So this is also helpful again in the complex use cases where you need the data analysis, data visualization, text processing, or you want to have optimization problem solving. So all of that can be done through agents. And this code interpretation really allows agents to generate charts, and that can help enhance the user experience as well. If you take the example of same flight booking agent application, you can add the code interpretation as part of the agent and ask agent to, let's say, generate a graph of pricing of the flights in a bar chart way per day, right? So you can see how the price of the flights are changing on a daily basis. You can also ask it to give me the flights between the two destinations and show me the number of flights in a line chart. So basically it can take the user experience to the next level as you can actually visualize all of those things before you can start booking a flight. Okay, so with Amazon Bedrock Guardrail, now introduce a feature that can help you detect hallucination and safeguard your applications even further. So just to recap, what was Amazon Guardrails? So Amazon Guardrails were bedrock. First of all, enable the customers to implement some of the safeguards based on the application requirements. So it can help prevent undesirable content. So for example, toxic language, hate words, all of that you can block. You can also block prompt attacks, right? Prompt injection or jailbreaks. You can also remove sensitive information using the guardrails. For example, you don't want to give any kind of customer PI information, name, credit card information, or phone numbers. All of that you can mask or completely block it as well using some of these safeguards. So there were 4 safeguards before. One is denied topics, one was content filtering, one was sensitive information filters, and finally there was also word filters. Now in the summit, AWS announced 2 more capabilities. And this is around contextual grounding checks. So contextual grounding checks allow to detect hallucination in model's response, and you can block it as well. So it is extremely useful when you are building RAG-based applications to improve the response and the quality of the responses from LLM. Because it will reduce the hallucination. Also, it will make sure that the answer that the LLM is giving is actually relevant to the user question. So there are 2 filtering parameters for contextual grounding. One is grounding, which is basically once you enable it by providing the grounding threshold that represents the minimum confidence score for a model to be response to be grounded. So a model response with the lower score than the defined threshold is blocked. And you can also configure the message that will be returned to the user. And similarly in case of relevance as well. So this parameter, relevance parameter threshold, it also works similarly, that represent the minimum confidence score for a model response to be relevant to the user's query. If model's response of the relevance is lower than the or below the threshold of what you defined as the relevance score, then this is also blocked, and configured blocked message that you had will be returned to the user. So both of these will really help in improving the quality of the response that a model is providing and reducing the hallucination. Now there was another apply guardrail API that was introduced. So apply guardrail API can evaluate input prompts and models' responses for all the foundational models. So it's kind of a centralized governance across your generative AI applications. So this apply guardrails enables you to standardize and consistent safeguards across your generative AI applications, whether you built it using your self-managed or third-party foundational models, and regardless of the underlying architecture or infrastructure as well. So foundational models such as that are built using or trained using Amazon SageMaker, or you're using infrastructure like Amazon EC2, or even you're using on-prem deployments or other third-party foundational models beyond Amazon Bedrock, you can apply guardrails using apply guardrail API now. And one other extremely important thing was this guardrail API, you can actually introduce it at different stages of your generative AI application as well. So this gives you really flexibility in application development. For example, let's say you're building a RAG application and you want to introduce this guardrail to evaluate first the harmful user input. Even before you go and perform the search on a knowledge base, on a vector database, you want to make sure the user input is valid and not harmful. So you can add that guardrail there, so it will block the content which shouldn't be going to the vector database. And subsequently, you can also do that in the output as well. So it not only provides an extra layer of safeguard, it also actually helps you reduce your cost as well. Okay, let's talk about App Studio. So what is App Studio? So App Studio is a generative AI powered service that uses natural language to help you create enterprise-grade applications in minutes. And you don't need any, obviously, software development skills to do that. So now the builders can create and deploy apps to modernize internal business processes. So think like, for example, let's say if you are using some kind of a tracking mechanism, smart sheets, or some other kind of documents to actually do inventory management and tracking, or claim processing, or complex approval, all of that you can fully automate using App Studio, which can help you build the application um, in minutes. And it can generate apps with complete user interface, data models, and business logic. So App Studio helps the organizations to build end-to-end custom applications, and it has two main user roles. So one is the builder role and one is the admin. So builders are like the member of the builder group can actually create, build, and share these kind of applications. And admin really helps in managing the group, right, and roles. So basically creating and editing connectors or maintaining visibility into how app is built with their organization. So it is currently in preview, but I'll play around and share my learnings in the upcoming video. But we'll see. This is really exciting where you can build the app using the natural language. You can build different components of the app using the natural language. So I'll try it out and see how good it is and share my learnings as well. So another very important launch, and this was, I think, missed into some of the other like App Studio kind of announcements, is customizing Amazon Q Developer in your IDE with your private code base. But I think it is very, very important for the developers. So just a very quick recap, Amazon Q Developer was artificial intelligence coding companion, right? It helped you like IT professional software developers to accelerate application development by offering code recommendations, suggestions as part of their IDEs. And behind the scene, it obviously uses Amazon Q as and the large language model, which was trained on all of that billions of lines of code and open source projects to help you give those kind of recommendations. And some of the IDs, it was actually integrated with the JetBrains through the extensions, I think JetBrains, Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio as well. But now with this new customization capabilities that they launched, developer can now receive even more relevant code recommendations that are based on their organization's internal libraries, APIs, packages, class, and functions. For example, let's imagine that a developer is working on a financial company and is tasked to write a function to compute the total portfolio value for a customer. Now the developer can describe the intent as part of a command, and Amazon Q can suggest the code to implement that function based on the examples it learned from the organization's private code base. So this is really exciting. But how does it work actually? So it does work under the hood as a contextual search. And this retrieval can happen in using two different algorithms. One is bag of words or semantic retrieval. So bag of word is a retrieval function that ranks the set of code snippet based on the query term frequencies and code snippet lengths. Semantic retrieval, on the other hand, basically do a ANN or KNN search onto the vector databases or to the knowledge base to find the code snippets where are very, very semantically similar to the one that user is asking. It's exciting stuff here. Alright, so vector search for Amazon MemoryDB is also generally available now. So Amazon is already offering vector search as part of their different database offerings. So you can see the vector search in RDS, in Aurora. You can see the vector search in DocumentDB, Neptune. You can see it through ZeroETL in DynamoDB. So it's coming to all of the different purpose-built databases that is there in AWS. Now with this particular launch, Amazon MemoryDB delivers the fastest vector search performance at the highest recall among all of the popular vector databases that are offered in AWS. Right? So you can really think about the use cases where you need this single-digit millisecond latencies and around for the similarity search as well, and that's exactly where Amazon MemoryDB will fit in. So what are those use cases? One is RAG, right? And it can be used, RAG is used with different kind of vector databases. You can use RAG with Aurora, RDS, or any other vector database, OpenSearch and all that. You can also use RAG with MemoryDB, right? So depending on how fast you want those responses to be, MemoryDB might be an ideal database store for those single-digit millisecond latencies kind of applications. You can also use MemoryDB for low latency durable semantic caching, right? Previously, a lot of customers were building this on their own using DynamoDB, but now with the MemoryDB GA, you can actually use MemoryDB for that. And finally, and very important actually for fraud detection cases where you really need to detect the fraud very, very quickly and take action. So MemoryDB can really help in that as well. So let's look at some of these use cases in action. So with RAG, so RAG one is a very, very standard one. Like you can use any other vector database here, but the model is simple. You store those vector embeddings as part of the MemoryDB. When the search comes in from the prompt comes in from the user, it does the semantic search in MemoryDB, identifies the closer documents, and that documents will be sent to the LLMs to enrich the or augment the prompt with the enterprise knowledge. So very, very similar use case. You can use any database here, but depending on what kind of latencies you are looking for, MemoryDB might be the right fit. I believe the last two use cases are more geared towards MemoryDB. So let's discuss these. So one is low latency durable semantic caching. So semantic caching is a process to reduce computational cost by storing the previous result from the foundational model in memory. So you can store these prior inferenced answers alongside the vector representation of the questions that is coming from the user in the MemoryDB, and you can reuse them instead of inferencing another answer from the LLM every time. So next time, let's say a user query that comes in which is semantically similar based on the defined similarity score to the previous question. In that case, MemoryDB will return the answer to the prior question. So the use case will allow you to respond faster with much lower cost, as you will not be doing another round of inferencing and just giving the answer from the MemoryDB. So very, very important use case here. And finally, this real-time anomaly detection use case. So you can use this vector search for anomaly detection. And this is basically to supplement your rule-based or batch ML processing by storing transactional data represented by vectors alongside metadata that represent whether those transactions were identified as fraud. So you basically, first of all, store those transactions, metadata, and you store it whether it was a fraudulent transaction or a valid transaction. Right? So once you have that as part of the MemoryDB, then when the user prompt comes in, the machine learning process can detect the fraudulent transaction when a new transaction have a high similarity score based on that vector search. And it can look at in the MemoryDB and see it's a very high similarity score with the fraudulent transaction. So this transaction seems to be a fraudulent. So that way, and with this single digit millisecond latency, it can be really, really powerful to reject the transaction within single digit milliseconds to minimize the risk of a fraud. All right, finally, we will talk about the knowledge base. So knowledge base for Amazon Bedrock actually previously supporting S3. Now you can also connect your web domains. You can have Confluence, Salesforce, and SharePoint as the data source to your RAG application as well. So you can build application using all of these data sources. Currently, it's also in preview. I think it's important to actually have additional data sources as well. So. All right, so finally, we had few other launches. We discussed the first two briefly, but one that I really wanted to touch base on is fine-tuning Anthropic's Claude 3 Haiku model in Amazon Bedrock. So according to Anthropic, Claude 3 Haiku is the fastest and the most cost-effective model on the market for its intelligence category. And now you can fine-tune this Anthropic's Claude 3 Haiku in Amazon Bedrock in a preview capacity. Now, why do you want to fine-tune a model? So fine-tuning really enhances a task-specific model performance. And sometimes by just fine-tuning this smaller, lighter models, you can help these models to perform even better than some of the more powerful and complex models. So for example, by doing the fine-tuning, you can actually make Haiku perform better than Claude 3 Sonnet or Opus in some cases. And if you think from the business perspective, that's a gain, right? That's win-win. So you are getting the improved performance with reduced cost and much faster performance as well, because Haiku is super fast. So I think this is going to be a game changer for some of those customers who deal with a lot of business domain data and they wanted to build applications based on that industry and domain. By using these lightweight models, they can really reduce cost and justify the business ROI. That's all I have for today. Let me know which announcement you found the most relevant and important. We will dig deeper into some of those announcements in future. And thank you for joining the channel and the video today. See you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.